At 82, I've learned a great deal about life, but there's one decision I truly regret, and that was moving into a nursing home at the time. It seemed like the right choice. My family encouraged it, promising that I would be well cared for and live comfortably, with all my needs met. I believed them. But when I got there, I realized the reality was nothing like what I had imagined. I know many of you may be considering this option for yourselves or a loved one. Perhaps you think it's the safest decision, or maybe someone has told you it will make life easier. But before you go down that path, I want to share 6 things I wish someone had told me before I moved in. Because the truth is, life in a nursing home isn't simply about convenience, it changes everything. And once you're in, leaving isn't as easy as you might think. Stay with me until the end, because some of these lessons might surprise you. And if you know someone who is thinking about a nursing home, this video might just be what they need to hear before making a life-altering decision. Let's begin. Regret number 1, loss of freedom. The biggest shock after moving into the nursing home wasn't the small room, the fixed meal times, or the unfamiliar faces. It was the realization that I had lost control over my own life. Before moving in, I had my own routine. I decided when to wake up, when to eat, and how to spend my day. I could go for a walk whenever I wanted, cook for myself, or just sit quietly in my favorite chair with a book. But in the nursing home, I quickly realized that my time was no longer my own. Everything ran on a schedule, just not my schedule. Breakfast happened at a fixed time, whether I was hungry or not. Lights out came at a set time, whether I was ready or not. Want to go for a walk outside? You might need to ask permission, and you certainly have to wait until someone is available to assist you. Simple decisions, like what to eat or what to wear, started to feel more like privileges than basic rights. I remember the first week there, waking up in a bed that didn't feel like mine. I sat up, stretched, and reached for the book I used to read at home. But as I looked around the room, I suddenly realized this wasn't my home. The books, the favorite chair, the small comforts I had accumulated over the years were now gone. Instead, there were blank walls, a bed I hadn't chosen, and an unshakable feeling that I was no longer in charge of my life. The hardest part was realizing that once you give up your freedom, getting it back is almost impossible. You adapt because you have to. You stop arguing when they tell you what's for dinner. You stop asking if you can go for a walk whenever you want. You learn to fit into their system. But in the process, you start to lose yourself. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready to give up the small freedoms that make up your life? Because when they're gone, you'll miss them more than you ever thought possible. Regret number 2, the feeling of being forgotten. One of the most difficult truths about moving into a nursing home is realizing that the world outside keeps going on without you. When I first arrived, my family reassured me that they would visit often. I believed them, and at first, they did. My daughter stopped by once a week, my grandchildren came on weekends, and for a short time, I felt like I was still connected to my old life. But as the months passed, the visits became less frequent. My daughter started calling instead of coming. My grandchildren were busy with school and work. The holidays were the hardest. Everyone promised to visit, but plans always changed at the last minute. And suddenly, I found myself sitting alone in the common room, watching others glance at the door, hoping that today would be the day someone remembered them. It's not that my family stopped loving me, it's just that life gets in the way. When you're not around every day, it's easy for people to assume you're okay, that you're adapting, that you don't need as much attention. But the truth is, the longer you're in a nursing home, the easier it is for people to forget just how much you still need them. I remember one evening sitting in my room, holding my phone, debating whether to call my son. I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to remind him that I was waiting for a visit that might never come. So I put the phone down, and that's when I realized, this is my life now, watching the days go by, hoping someone will remember me. If you're thinking about going into a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready for the loneliness? Because no matter how much your family loves you, when you're out of sight, it's easier to be forgotten than you might think. If you're still watching this video and finding these shares valuable, please comment with the number 2 below so I know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to do so and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Now, let's continue. Regret number 3, loss of purpose. When I moved into the nursing home, I thought I was just changing my place of residence. I didn't realize I was also changing my reason for living. At home, I had responsibilities. I had routines, hobbies, and reasons to get up every morning. Even small things like watering the plants, making coffee, and tidying up my space gave me a sense of purpose. But in the nursing home, those daily routines disappeared. Meals were prepared for me. Cleaning was done by others. The plants, they weren't mine to care for anymore. At first, I told myself it would be nice to finally relax, no more chores, no more responsibilities, just rest. But after a few weeks, I realized something was missing. The days became long, stretching out with nothing to do but wait. I saw it in others too. People who were once full of energy now just sat staring, waiting for time to pass. There was a man named Hung, 84 years old, who had been a carpenter all his life. At home, he was always fixing things, working on small projects in his garage. But here, there were no tools, no projects, nothing for him to create. I watched him gradually withdraw into himself, his hands, once strong and skillful, now lying limp in his lap. I feel useless, he told me one day, and I understood exactly what he meant. When you no longer have anything to care for, nothing to look forward to, life begins to lose its meaning. The mind slows down, the body follows, and before long, you feel like you're just a lodger in a place where time passes but nothing changes. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, what gives your life meaning? Because once you're there, finding meaning isn't as simple as filling the time, it's a struggle to hold on to the things that make you feel alive. Regret number 4, health declines faster than expected. Before going into the nursing home, I was relatively healthy for my age. I wasn't running marathons, but I could take care of myself, go for walks, and cook my own meals. I had small habits that kept me active, going to the market, stretching in the morning, even just walking around the house to keep my legs limber. But when I went in, everything changed. At first, I thought I was just resting. Meals were brought to me, I didn't have to stand in the kitchen cooking. If I needed anything, I just had to press a button, and someone would come to help. But I didn't realize that the less I did for myself, the weaker I became. I stopped moving as much, and before long, my legs became stiffer. I sat more than I ever had before, and before I knew it, getting up from a chair became a challenge. The muscles I had maintained for years disappeared faster than I ever thought possible. And it wasn't just me. I saw it in others too. People who walked in on their own 2 feet now had to use wheelchairs. People who were once independent now needed help with things they had never struggled with before. The more we were helped, the more we needed it. I remember Mrs. Lon, an 81-year-old woman who was very active when she first arrived. She used to take daily walks around the complex, insisting that she wasn't slowing down just because of her age. But after a few months, I saw her walking less, then using a cane, then a wheelchair. One day, she looked at me and said, "I don't know when it happened, but I feel like I've aged 5 years in just a few months." And that's exactly what it feels like. When you stop using your body, you start to lose it. In a nursing home, where everything is designed to be easier, it's easy to forget that movement isn't just about convenience, it's about survival. If I had known how quickly my strength would decline, would have fought harder to stay active, to maintain my health, to push myself even when I didn't want to. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, do you still have the motivation to keep your body healthy when everything is set up to make life easy? Because when you slow down, getting back up isn't as easy as you might think. If you're still watching this video and finding these shares valuable, please comment with the number 4 below so I know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to do so and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue to create good content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's continue. Regret number 5, loss of privacy and dignity. One thing I didn't consider carefully enough before going into the nursing home was how much privacy I would lose. At home, I had my own space. I could close my bedroom door, sit in silence if I wanted, and do things my own way. But in a nursing home, privacy is a luxury you don't always have. From the moment I arrived, I felt like I was constantly being monitored. Staff came in and out to check on rooms according to a schedule, and the common areas were places where you were rarely alone. Even simple things like getting dressed or using the bathroom often required assistance. I know they were just doing their jobs, but it's not easy to accept help for things you've done yourself your whole life. I remember the first week, struggling with the idea that I had to ask permission to do things I used to do without thinking. Want to take a shower? You might have to wait until someone is free to help. Need to use the restroom? Sometimes pressing the call button means waiting longer than you'd like. Even choosing your meals is limited. If you don't like what's on the menu that day, you're out of luck. And then there's the issue of roommates. Not everyone has a private room, and sharing a space with someone you didn't choose can be challenging. I was lucky to have a kind roommate, but I heard stories from others who weren't so fortunate. Some had roommates who were noisy, unclean, or had cognitive issues that made sleeping nearly impossible. No matter how hard you try to make your room feel like home, it's never truly yours. Dignity is a hard thing to lose, and I didn't realize how much of it I'd have to give up until I was there. When people knock on your door but don't always wait for you to answer before entering, when you're spoken to like a patient instead of a person, when your daily routines are dictated by a schedule you didn't create, it changes you. You start to feel less like yourself and more like a name on a list. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready to give up the privacy and control you've had your whole life? Because when it's gone, it's hard to get back. Regret number 6, realizing that leaving is harder than you think. When I first went into the nursing home, I told myself it was only temporary. I thought I would try it out, see how things went, and if I didn't like it, I could always leave. But I didn't realize how difficult it would be to get out once I was in. At first, it seemed simple, if I didn't like it, I would go home. But my home wasn't the same as it used to be. The house was empty, and maintaining it from a distance became difficult. My children had started to make changes, selling things they thought I didn't need, even considering renting out the place. When I mentioned the idea of returning, they hesitated. "Mom, are you sure you can manage on your own? Isn't it safer to stay? We just want what's best for you." And then there was the issue of physical decline. After months of living in a place where I didn't have to cook, clean, or walk much, I wasn't as strong as I used to be. The independence I once had was starting to slip away, making the idea of going home more difficult than I had imagined. I no longer felt confident in my ability to live alone, and that fear kept me where I was. I met others who had the same experience. They thought they would try out the nursing home for a while, only to realize that leaving wasn't as easy as they had thought. The longer you stay, the harder it is to adapt to life outside. Some people even lose the option altogether when their homes are sold or their savings are depleted by the cost of care. There's no way back. That's the part no one tells you about. Moving in feels like a decision you can reverse. But for most people, it's not. The nursing home slowly becomes your whole world, and before you know it, the life you once knew outside starts to feel like a distant memory. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready for the possibility that once you're in, leaving might not be as simple as you think? Because when you've settled in, the barriers to leaving, whether financial, physical, or emotional, can be harder to overcome than you expect. If you're still watching this video and finding these shares valuable, please comment with the number 6 below so I know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to do so and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue to create good content to inform and inspire you. Final thoughts. Looking back, I don't regret getting older, but I do regret believing that a nursing home was my only option. I went in expecting comfort, safety, and a better quality of life, but instead, I found a world that slowly took away my independence, my privacy, my purpose, and even my sense of self. Does that mean all nursing homes are bad? No, not necessarily. Some people truly need the level of care they provide. But before you make the decision, think carefully about what you're giving up. Because once you move in, life will never be the same. If I could do it over again, I would have fought harder to stay in my own home, found more ways to get help without giving up my freedom, and made sure I truly needed to go in before taking such a permanent step. And if you're facing this decision, I hope you'll take the time to ask yourself, is this really what's best for me, or is it just what's easiest right now? Because the life you have today, your routines, your independence, your choices, is worth holding on to for as long as possible. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to apply it to your life. Your feedback is very important to us, so don't hesitate to share. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue to create good content to inform and inspire you. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.